Welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The ensuing show will change, transform, and otherwise alter you. Good luck.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rose Red Roffman, and today we are continuing and hopefully concluding our discussion on Stephen King's Everything's Eventual. If you haven't listened to the first part yet, what the hell are you doing? Stop this episode now and catch up with our rather wonderful chat from last week. It's a little lengthier than the one we're going to go on for today, but we had to split it up because otherwise we're going to get a talisman-sized episode. So, what are you going to do? Up ahead, we've got 7 more stories to discuss, the best of them, you might say. Although, as I said before, best and worst, it's more of a situational thing here. So let's introduce ourselves again. Here in Chicago with me is
Rockin' Randall Road Virus.
Oh, I'm getting chills thinking about it. And down in Nashville is
Jenn to the Rage Adams.
sequelitis. I'm getting
yes.
And keeping it weird as always.
Ashley, the woman in the black suit, Casseday.
Oh,
nice.
That's a little hint as to one of the stories we'll be discussing in the 7 coming up ahead. But I don't know if you're feeling lucky. But we've got lucky number 7 to discuss. And that story takes us to a place of the dead, a place only coroners visit. And that place is Autopsy Room 4.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. So this one dates back to that 6 stories collection from 1997 that we discussed last week. Let's hear what King said. Jenn, take it away.
All right. At some point, I think every writer of scary stories has to tackle the subject of premature burial, if only because it seems to be such a pervasive fear. When I was a kid of 7 or so, the scariest TV program going was Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and the scariest AHP, my friends and I were in total agreement on this, was the one starring Joseph Cotten as a man who has been injured in a car accident. Injured so badly, in fact, that the doctors think he's dead. They can't even find a heartbeat. They're on the verge of doing a post-mortem on him, cutting him up while he's still alive and screaming inside. In other words, when he produces one single tear to let them know he's still alive. That was touching. But touching isn't in my usual repertoire. Well, not all kinds of touching. When my own thoughts turned to this subject, or more, shall we say, modern method of communication, liveliness occurred to me. And this story was the result. One final note regarding the snake. I doubt like hell if there's any such reptile as a Peruvian boom slang. But in one of her Miss Marple capers, Dame Agatha Christie does mention an African boom slang. I just liked the word so much. Boom slang, not African. I had to put it in the story. I do like that word, boom slang.
Boom slang. I like Boomerang starring Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, I'd like to change my name to Jenn Boom Slang Adams.
All right. That's fair. That's fair. This is all mid-tier for us, which is why it arrives at the middle of this ranking list. It's essentially one long dick joke, which isn't bad. But I'd argue for me, this would be higher if King, it was a little meaner, drew blood. Because I feel like if this was written in the 70s and this was in Night Shift,
that would have cut him open.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's the version I want, I think.
Same.
This, I still loved it, like, just because it's funny. Like, I was laughing and shrieking during this whole story. So I think that in that way, it's very successful. It ends with such a fart that it kind of, like, basically he gets a boner and that's what does it. And then he dates the doctor and it ends with this idea of like, oh, he can't get a boner anymore unless it's like a role play kind of thing. It's very silly. And, but it reminded me, I said this to you, Mike, in the latest season of I Think You Should Leave on Netflix, there's an incredible sketch where a guy keeps eating, he's at dinner with some of his former students, and he keeps eating the burger of one of the other people over and over again. And then the sketch goes all these different weird places, like plumbing the depths of this man. And then it ends with him, like they clearly didn't know how to end it. So it ends with him making like a really, really crude, like dick joke or like cunnilingus joke basically, and because they didn't know how else to end it, and then everybody groans and that's the end of it. Like that's literally, to me, like this story is like, it's so great and it's flitting all these other directions and building up this tension, but he doesn't really quite know how to end it, so it kind of is just everybody goes in the end. It's like sitcom credits where everybody pauses, like giving shrugs and then we just move on. So but I do love it. It's fun.
This was actually one of the ones I remembered, like start to finish. I assume I read it more than once when I was younger. I didn't remember much after the boner and realizing that he was still alive. Like I didn't remember the whole like the snake is still loose in Derry, which was kind of scary.
Yeah.
But do you guys remember the Tales from the Crypt episode where they did this? Where the guy was getting an autopsy and they made it seem really real, but it turns out it was his friend like playing a prank on him and had like paralyzed him. Do you guys remember?
It rings a bell because
it's so good.
Tales from the Crypt was the first thing I thought of when I was reading this, so I had to remember that. But and so that one gets meaner though, right?
It's pretty mean. Yeah. I mean, to the point where they hang his body on a meat hook, and it's real dark and it's real gory. And that's the one I kept thinking of. And for some reason, I think I just thought there was going to be a twist like that at the end, like that episode. And I didn't quite get it. I remembered the boner. Yeah, this story was just like, it was a fun reread, but I anticipated it being a favorite. And so when it wasn't, I was a little bit more let down than I maybe would have been if I had read it for the first time and like didn't remember loving it so much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say like the scissors have long, sharp blades, very sharp blades, and fat finger holes. The lower blade slides into the gut like butter, then snip up through the bundle of nerves at the solar plexus and into the beef jerky weave of muscle and tendon above it, then into the sternum. When the blades come together this time, they do so with a heavy crunch as the bone parts and the rib cage pops apart like a couple of barrels which have been lashed together with twine. Like he's having...
I love that.
He's having a riot, man, and that's like that to me is that's like the fun thing is you know he's licking his lips while writing this shit. You know, this is fun,
which is what makes it such a good first story.
Yeah,
because
totally,
it's got a good vibe to it. Jen,
mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I anticipated this kind of being a favorite too because it's so memorable. You know. It's also read by Oliver Platt, which is
that's
perfect.
That is
like
perfect.
I like to think that this is his punishment for being the only one in Flatliners who does not do the Flatliner thing. But yeah, and
that's a good
great.
Point. Yeah.
And he just reads it so well. And as the first one, it's kind of where I was ranking everything against, you know, like, do I like it more than Autopsy Room 4 or less? Because it just kind of is. I feel like it doesn't really have any overall weight to it. Like I don't bring anything of my own personal life to this story, but it is really fun. It reminds me of Autopsy of Jane Doe, which is one of my favorite movies. Although I feel like I bring a lot more to that story.
I love that movie. Yeah,
I do too. But in just the terror of being in that situation, I think, and I love that it's written in first person and we're really kind of experiencing this from inside the bag. I like his slow realization of what's happening, and it's one that I've listened to a lot over and over again too. But yeah, I kept, as I was ranking other ones, I kept saying, well, yeah, I like this one better. I like this one better. I like this one better. And that's how it got pushed down to about mid. And I think that's a great place for it, you know?
Yeah. I think, it's not a deep fear. It's a very surface level. Everyone's afraid of dying. Everyone's especially afraid of being buried alive. You know what I mean? Like, or people thinking you're dead when you're not. Like, or even just the idea of going under anesthesia but remembering or experiencing everything during your surgery. Like, that's a very base level. Like, you don't have to look too much deeper into it. It's fucking scary. And like, there doesn't have to be a deeper meaning behind it. And just to throw a boner in on top of it is.
Yeah, it's the boner really that I think sort of defangs the story. And, which is fine. Like, I don't need I love a good story like this. Like, this is the kind of stuff he would have published in skin mags, in the 70s. And only in those, I think he would have had the guy get killed. But it's, but at the same time, I love a good story like this. I hope he never stops writing stories like this because it's good stuff.
Do we need to know, like, all about the house with the snakes, though? Like, I mean, it just seems kind of like you could have just been like,
there's a little bit of Gerald's Game retcon.
Yeah, it was just like, all right, we get it. The snake was somewhere. Like, the thing the beauty about some of those earlier stories is that you just don't really put much thought into, like, the why. I don't really I don't care about the why.
Doesn't matter where the snake came from. Could have came from outer space.
Exactly.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Like, they have this, like, the house belonged to a bachelor bank clerk named Walter. Like, I don't need to know this. Like, no one needs to know this. Just know that.
Because then it just sets up more questions where it's like, what's Walter up to?
Yeah, exactly.
Give me Walter's story.
Like, what the fuck does he have all these poisonous snakes for?
Yeah, I will say, this dairy is just not a good place to live in.
Oh, dude.
It's just, what the fuck's going on here? You got killer
scary,
clowns and aliens and everything.
And we get another dairy story in this one too.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. Well, anything else on the anything you want to cut open here?
No.
Where would you, if we were going to go meatier and bloodier with it, would you have? I wouldn't want him to die, but I would want, like, maybe a limb lost or something like that, right?
Maybe they cut the top of his skull off, because I think you can still survive. Like, we've seen Hannibal.
I was gonna say the late Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
And then,
Rest in peace.
Rest in
R.I.P.
peace. He's a good fellow himself, as we just talked
died.
about the mobs. All right, let's move on. Lucky 7 with the Autopsy Room 4, so that was good. 6. It kind of reads a little bit like a John Lennon song, actually. All that you love will be carried away. This one dates back to a January 29th, 2001 issue of The New Yorker. King said, "I like to drive, and I'm particularly addicted to those long interstate barrels where you see nothing but prairies to either side and a cinder block rest area every 40 miles or so. Rest area bathrooms are always full of graffiti, some of it extremely weird. I started to collect these dispatches from nowhere, keeping them in a pocket notebook. Got others off the internet. There are 2 or 3 websites dedicated to them, which is so weird. And finally found the story in which they belong. This is it. I don't know if it's good or not, but I cared very much for the lonely man at its center and really hope things turned out okay for him. In the first draft, things did, but Bill Buford of The New Yorker suggested a more ambiguous ending. He was probably right, but we could all say a prayer for the Alfie Zimmers of the world." I had this one the highest, and I think it's because, like King, I really did find myself obsessed with the man at the center of the story, because, not to get too personal, I found myself a lot like the man in the center of the story. I'm not going to get too personal again, but I've been suicidal in nature of the last few years, and not even just like the literal suicidal. It's just the idea. There's a comfortability sometimes when you can just go. And I think when you have a high pressured lifestyle, sometimes, and perhaps a lifestyle that you're not happy in, obviously suicide comes to mind, but there's also things where you're in high stakes situations and you have that in your back pocket where you can basically just be like, all right, you know what? Shit hits the fan. So can I.
I can just check out.
And I kind of understand where, Alfie is at here. And I don't think this is the only time he's ever done it. And I think he's probably done this multiple times. And he has that sort of countdown. And more often than not, the farmhouse wins. And, you're good. And you're able to, you're safe.
Yeah.
But man, this one stuck with me. And it's really the one that got me so sucked into this book. I said, oh, he's going places with this one. This is interesting. And I think it's fitting that this was in the New Yorker because, no shade to New Yorker, which is a pretentious rag, but I love, it fits in that sense. Cause I think this is a very high literary fiction. And I think the tiniest, the details that they had in this, the weather, the motel, the dire outlook, it was just hypnotizing to me. So
I think you have to kind of get personal with it, because I wrote, when I was going over my notes, almost the exact same thing you did, that like there is a power in the fact that like no one can take that one thing from you. Even if they could take everything else from you, they can't take the fact that they can kill you for sure, but the decision to check out is always there. And there is like sort of a power in that. And it is a coping mechanism for people who suffer from anxiety and depression. Like, I have such a severe anxiety disorder that there have been times where it's literally like, okay, well, if XYZ happens, then like, I can just kill myself. And like, it's not dark. Like, that's the thing that people don't understand about people who are suicidal, is that it's not really that dark to you. And like, that's why we can joke about suicide so easily, and we can be so crass about suicides, because like, I never thought of it like, oh, how sad that I would kill myself. It was just like, I'd kill myself and it's fine. And like, that sort of like weird stakes, I don't think would register to people who haven't felt that way before, of like, okay, well, if the lights come on, or if the next commercial is Clorox, then I won't drink Clorox. You know what I mean? Like, there's little sort of games that you play.
Yep,
that
totally.
Aren't that dark to you, really. They're not that serious to you. And it was interesting to read this. It didn't end up being that high for me, and I don't know why, because I actually really liked this story. I just think others won over it,
Same.
But I really liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked the kind of game at the end of it too, and that's something that I have done a lot. Like, if I hear this song on the radio, I'm going to do this, or I looked at tarot for that for a long time. Like, whatever card comes up, that's going to tell me what to do, and it's really just kind of looking for this approval for something that I either do or don't want to do already. I just can't say it, And
you want like cosmic affirmation.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, what I think I love so much about this is that it is such a dark story, but it doesn't feel super dark. It feels like floating dark, and that's the way a lot of my like I have intrusive thoughts that are suicidal, and there's no real weight to them, but they come into my head and I have to let them go. I've realized now, if I just say it out loud, or if I just kind of let it pass through my head, then it goes away. And that's kind of what this story feels like to me, is like he's looking for some way to let this thought pass out of his head. And it's like, if these lights come on, then I can dismiss this thought. And I wonder, he says, I guess in the intro, that it does turn out well for him. And I think that's why I connected with it so much, is that I don't really feel like he wants to end his life. I feel like this is just something in his head that he can't get out, and he's trying to find something that will allow him to get it out. I also love the idea of collecting words in a notebook. I think there's I've tried to do that before, and I just can't make myself do it, but I just think I would love to look through his notebook. I think there's such a fascination and romanticism about that.
Well, and then the notebook is such a perfect token, because it really it just reveals the irony of the situation, and that it's like the joke where it's like, oh, I'd kill when I kill myself, I'm gonna put the gun in my mouth, but I want to clean it before I put it in, and that's the idea. It's like, oh, well, you're worried about that, so there's a sense of life and survival instinct that you have with you, which means that you're not going to do it. And the fact that he's worried about the notebook and where they're going to find it, it's like, oh, that you're still having your survival instinct on. You don't know it yet, but that is the survival instinct. And that, to me, speaks volumes about the sort of depth of knowledge that King's coming in with this story. Because
that's humor, right?
It's the human condition right there too.
It's humor. This is what I love, is and like, this speaks to what you were saying, Ashley, is that it's not suicide often for the person who is thinking about it. There is the comfort of control, right? Because that's the one thing in your life you can always have control over. There's that. But then it's also the humor of, well, when they find my body, what will that be like?
Yeah.
And you're thinking about that. And like, the idea of him trying to hide this notebook in various places and then thinking about all the potential outcomes is such a wonderful way to explore suicide in a funny way. And I agree, because I feel like, as taboo as that is, it's one thing that I feel like nobody ever gets mad when people explore it comically, like, or at least, you know, by and large, people don't. I feel like there's a lot of comedies that center around notions of suicide because I think that there is an extremity to it, and there is also all of these worries that go associated with it that if you really wanted to kill yourself, you wouldn't be as worried about. And that to me is the humanity that was the engine of the story, was the humor, and also what convinced me that there was no way he was going to kill himself, like, because he was too concerned with all those things, you know. And that does speak to exactly what you were saying, Mike, which is a kind of idea of self-preservation. In if you were really suicidal, you probably wouldn't be thinking about that. But for me, what I loved about this story is, and this is where I tapped in, is I also am fascinated by scraps of text that exist in weird places. And the funny thing about this is I have kind of two ways in, and one is more resonant than the other. But I'll say a lot of what he's talking about with these sort of like nonsense phrases that are written in stalls, that's like Twitter now in a lot of ways. Like where the people that I primarily follow are people who write things like about diarrhea. You know what I mean? It's like the stupidest, most insane tweets, just complete gobbledygook, but they're really funny in a weird, offbeat kind of way. And that's the kind of stuff I follow a lot because it reminds me in a way of the weird stuff you would see scribbled. Like, you know, Drill, like if you follow Drill on Twitter, great follow, but he'll just post stuff that is just pure nonsense. But there is something, and there's a line in this story where he talks about, is it humor or is it a howl of rage? You know, and he's speaking about various ideas, I think. But I think some of these things that are written on these stalls, they go from profane to profound, right? And they exist in these little pockets of crudeness, profanity, but then profundity. And I love that idea. And it speaks to something I was really fascinated with some years ago. And I tried to like build a play out of this, and I did write one, but nobody would produce it because it was insane. But it was, I used to get spam emails, and there was this period of spam emails where it was AI generated text that was weirdly haunting, like when you would read them. So I started like collecting text that I was getting in spam emails, and I've used some of the lines in plays that I've written. Like one line I always remember that was in a spam email was she pulled the wings off a fly and still called it a fly, which was to me just this like gorgeous piece of prose that was generated by, you know, some profane computer. And and then also there was this great spam email I got that's like legendary amongst me and my friends, where it's from somebody named Timothy Stuff, and he's selling you air-to-air rockets and child sex slaves. And it says stuff just kind of like child sex slaves 2 for 1, buy now and get right to business, you know. And it's like written like a pitchman, and he's like air-to-air rockets, buy one at you know $25,000, get one free. And it's like stuff like that. And we thought it was the funniest email ever because it's like black weapons on the black, you know, or like, you know, like heavy artillery on the black market, and it's like written like, you know, a Target email. And so I don't know, I became fascinated with that sort of thing, which feels like an extension of what he's doing in this, which is like not finding profundity from philosophers or the great writers or anything, or even from fiction, but from finding it from scribblings on walls. And that to me is something I find deeply interesting and profound. Yeah.
Well, and that profundity is something that I feel it comes from a very fringe place. Like this whole story is built from ground up, from exploring areas that we know are out there, but we drive by them. And we, you know, and like, I think about this all the time, especially I used to have to drive from Tallahassee to South Florida. And that's like a 6-hour drive, 5.5 or whatever. But you'd be going through areas where sometimes I would be driving out there, and, you know, this is before smartphones and all this other stuff. And so you really just had to lean on like whatever CDs you had in the car. And so you mind wanders a lot. And one of the things I always thought of was just like, I wonder if there's places in the fields that no human has ever stepped on. Or like, I wonder if there's, you know, I'm looking at a mountain up there. Has anyone ever really actually gone up it? There's nothing there. So why would anyone really need to go up it? And so has there been? And would there ever even be a record of knowing that? And like that went me on a wormhole of like just areas that you just don't think about. It's like I've always been fascinated even with just like look when I wake up in the morning and I look around at the corners of my room sometimes and I'm like, man, what a lonely concept of just like these corners exist and nothing's ever going to be there, but they are there because space necessitates their need for it. And I'm getting really existential on this stuff, but like I thought of that in this story, in that when you think about just the whole thing, it's just like this, small town in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, this motel that, goes in, certainly had some, people come and go, but for the most part, fairly removed from everything. It's icy, it's snowing. There's a farmhouse in the distance that has life, and there is life in these things, but what is this life that's in there? And that's what King's getting at. And it kind of ties into what you're saying, Randall, with these sayings. It's like these quotes have life in them. They come from people. They come from people that have point of view, that have some sort of thing to say. And most of the time, they're just left off and installed that people pass through on day in and day out. But there is still life tied to it. And that loneliness of that feeling is something that just felt so palpable to me, that fueled this character's entire arc. And I think that's ultimately what made, when I said it was hypnotizing, is where I got into it. It took me back to those moments when I was driving, when I was thinking about it. And I mean, sorry, I went for that rant, but that's kind of where I was at. But
the only movie trailer that's ever brought a tear to my eye is Inside Llewyn Davis, the Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
They're playing that beautiful song that is at the center of the movie, and there's a scene in the trailer that I remember cut me like a knife when I was watching it. Was when he's in the stall and he looks on the wall and it says, "What are you doing?" And it's just written on the stall in the bathroom, and I was like, good God, like the weight carried in that is so heavy. And like, that's a great movie, but it's very hard to watch because it hits really close to home. And so I think, I don't know, I love that he packaged this interesting story about a suicidal man with that kind of storytelling device was really interesting. I've never quite seen that before. So.
Yeah. It's almost like you could find it in a painting, like find a painting that you might have on a wall and you just kind of look at it and you're like, whatever. Or maybe it's a painting that scares you. And that's certainly a painting that is featured in our next story, The Road Virus Heads North, number 5. 5. So this one dates back to 999, New Stories of Horror and Suspense, which was changed to 999, 29 Original Tales of Horror and Suspense. I don't care which fine titles either one. The collection of short stories and novellas that were published in 1999 and edited by Al Sarantonio. There were a ton of names attached to this, including King's. William Peter Blatty. Ever heard of him? Exorcist. Joyce Carol Oates. Ramsey Campbell. Seems to be that he's a favorite amongst these collections.
Ramsey Campbell writes so many short stories. So yeah.
Really?
I think he's in all of the collections.
That's so funny.
He's very good at that.
Well, why don't you take the quote that King says here about the road virus?
I actually have the picture described in this story. How weird is that? My wife saw it and thought I'd like it, or at least react to it. So she gave it to me as a birthday present, Christmas present. I can't remember. What I can remember is that none of my 3 kids liked it. I hung it in my office and they claimed the driver's eyes followed them as they crossed the room. As a very small boy, my son Owen was similarly freaked out by a picture of Jim Morrison. I like stories about pictures that change, and finally I wrote this one about my picture. The only other time I can remember being inspired to write a story based on an actual picture was The House on Maple Street, based on a black and white drawing by Chris Van Allsburg. That story is in Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I also wrote a novel about a picture that changes. It's called Rose Madder, and is probably the you've said best read of my novels in this note, but it's least read is what he says, because I remember being struck by that. And then he says no movie either.
I love that.
And then he goes, in that story, the road virus is named Norman. It is interesting. He takes a little dig at, I mean, he's not, I think he's very proud of Rose Madder, but it didn't sell very well at all.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, at all. Like, it was still a huge seller, but in terms of
it's an acquired taste.
Yeah. I mean, I love our episode on it.
Didn't you, wasn't our headline like a play on that, wasn't it? It was like, this is Rose Madder is not the worst Stephen King or something like that.
Because there's been multiple lists that rank his books, and multiple lists have Rose Madder as his worst book, which is not fair at all. No. Yeah, it's a very good book. Well, but this story is interesting. And he does like a changing picture story, because as I mentioned earlier, the Sundog in 4 Past Midnight, and then obviously Rose Madder. And then I feel like there's at least one other story.
Wasn't there one in Nightmares and Dreamscapes? I could have sworn there.
Well, he does say there was one in there. The house on Maple Street was inspired by a picture. I don't remember that story particularly though. But
well, what I love about this is that it's just classic horror telling. I mean, it's so cut and dry. It's hook, line, and sinker of a story. I mean, I think that's why it's high here. Is because it's just easy to and digestible. I mean, this is probably the one I've read the fastest. Out of all these stories. Jen, as an art historian yourself, what do you love about this story?
Oh God, I love it. It feels like Night Shift. I had this as number 2 in my rankings. Yeah, I just love this one. It's one that I come back to when I want to get creeped out. I love how fast, like it's literally fast paced, because I love the haunting ending, like, oh, I guess I'm going outside, there's a funniness to it, but he's not afraid to go there. Like, I love the image of this lady's head on the ironing board, and it's interesting to hear him. I always like when he kind of reflects on the whole biz, when he talks about like the seminar he went to. He's like, once they realized I didn't know where my ideas came from, and I do sometimes scare myself, all they wanted to know is how to get an agent. And it's also funny, as I'm saying that, I've listened to some of these stories so many times that I can hear Stephen King reading these words in my head. Like, Mike, that passage that you read earlier, from the Gotham Hotel or the Gotham Cafe, I can hear King saying those words in his cadence. So I just love this one. It's fun and dirty and gross.
I put, this is so obviously King, LOL, like, because he's doing all the things he gripes about, which is people asking him like where stories come from and all that.
Totally.
Like and then
get your ideas.
Yeah, and then like a horror writer who is numbingly successful. It's like, have any of you seen the Nightmares and Dreamscapes TV adaptation of this? With Tom Berenger?
That was what I was going to ask. I'm literally looking it up right now.
It's pretty fun. I mean, Tom Berenger is like sleepwalking his way through it, but because it's Tom Berenger, but it's it's a pretty fun adaptation, and I think best suited for that kind of TV show. Like that's what this story is. I personally don't love it because I think that it's kind of forgettable ultimately, but I love so much of it. And the funny thing is, I didn't really like the ending when I was reading it yesterday. I was like, oh, and I read it a couple times and I'm like, this isn't landing for me. But then, I don't know, I revisited it this morning and then I started laughing. Just the idea of like him seeing the photo and there's like blood in the seat and he goes, oh, I'm going outside.
I think
like
I'm
that,
going outside.
Just that line, I couldn't really wrap my brain around it yesterday, and now I'm finding it very funny. Like he's like, okay, I'm caught up in this now. Like I'm seeing the future in this painting and I'm going outside.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to critique this one because it's so efficient,
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no fat here, and I love the sort of zags it takes. And I don't know, I love how mean it is too. I mean, because it's just, he's fucking dead. This guy's absolutely, and all he did was just buy a painting. And then I think that I think that
kinda, he's not a flawed character, but he's also not really a likable character.
No,
not that I need him to be, but it is interesting. Like usually King will give the guys he gives fate like this to some kind of unsavory quality.
Yeah,
and he doesn't really do that here.
No, it reminds me of Drag Me to Hell, because it's like,
Oh yeah.
And she's Christine Nat is certainly a more sympathetic character, but at the same time, we see her moral complexities and everything. You don't really get that here. It's just kind of, hey, I stumbled and bought this painting, and well, shit happens. Like, it kind of fucking sucks. Like, and if anything, the OCD superstitious type in me is just like that's where I when I think about the ramifications or consequences of just even the smallest action, sometimes like my mind starts losing it, and I'm like, well, what if it happens this? And I'll be like, oh no, that's not going to happen. And I was like, well, the world isn't fair, and these type of stories prove that. Like, there's no reason why he got stumbled into this. There's people that this woman just put on a fucking garage sale and she got her head chopped off. Like, I mean, it's a little unfair, but Ashley, are you?
Sorry.
Well, as someone who studies the paranormal, do you put a lot of stock into the moving pictures? Do you ever get creeped out by them?
Oh, I've actually had a fear of moving pictures my whole life, thanks to the movie The Witches.
Yes.
where
100%.
the scariest part of that story for me is the little girl who gets trapped in a painting and her parents just have to watch her grow old and die inside the painting. And it's always stuck with me. I hate moving paintings. And actually, recently, when we did an investigation at the Lemp Mansion, there was a specific painting there of Lillian Lemp that I swear on everything was different the first night we were there to the second night we were there. And I wouldn't go near it. And it happened, which is fine because it happened to be in the room where Billy Lemp killed himself, and it already had a lot of bad energy, and I didn't want to go in that room. So that's where the painting was. And I have no proof because I didn't take a picture of it that night. I just saw it and I was like, oh, I believe that's Lillian Lemp. And then the next night I was like, I feel like that's different. I feel like it's not the same painting I saw as the night before. And maybe it's just me being like more creeped out tonight. Like, I don't know what it was, but something about it was different. And this story, much like The Witches, has stuck in my craw my whole life. I've not forgotten this story. As soon as I started reading it, I was like, yup, I remember this. I remember everything that happens. It is so scary. And I wonder if it's sort of a heart-shaped box situation where it's the fascination with the morbid in general that is what got him killed.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Especially I don't know, I don't remember. Was he more obsessed with the painting after he found out the guy who painted it killed himself and burned all of his other paintings?
Nah, it seemed like it was right away that it kind of gripped him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
when
true.
you say heart-shaped box, are you talking about the Joe Hill novel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where
okay.
he
I'm only halfway through that.
Well, he actively is trying to get items with morbid histories and like supposed hauntings, and this character kind of does the same. He collects like things that creep him out, and even his aunt, or was it his aunt that he visits? Yeah, even his aunt that he visits is like, oh, that's so you, of course you would have that. And I wonder if that's kind of the, he didn't do anything wrong, he's not a bad guy, but just like that urge to collect all of those things, like to surround yourself with those dark
Play with
things.
the bull, you get the horns.
Exactly. And it's like eventually you might get possessed, or eventually you might get murdered by a painting.
This isn't going to be the last time we talk about this type of theme.
That's true.
Certainly not the last time we talk about moving pictures as well.
Last thing I'll say about this story is I know he wrote this before the accident, but it does have a little bit of extra weight if you look at it through the lens of the accident. Just the idea of somebody in a car sort of chasing you down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wonder how this story would look if he had written it after the accident, if it would have more existential weight to it. I like the version as is. I don't know if I need that, but, I think about Riding the Bullet, which is another story about, men in cars, and that one was written after the accident, and you can see the existential weight and the difference between those two stories.
Didn't you kind of laugh at like the idea that this like haunting image is just a guy in a fucking, and it's basically just a greaser in a convertible?
But
it's
like the cannibal
corny.
teeth, I love, and I just love the idea of like subtly you can just start seeing more slowly. Like this terrible thing has become aware of you now.
Yeah, like later on, certainly, like when it's moving, when you're definitely able to prove that it's moving, I'd be like, all right, this is kind of creepy. But if I just like saw this guy, like in a convertible smiling, and he kind of has like vampire teeth, I'd be like, this fucking painting sucks. Like,
it's not a scary concept.
No, it's so,
and that's why you'd survive.
I would. I'd be like, I don't want anything here, and
go home and
bye
dinner and go to sleep.
Yeah,
go see your.
No, you
aunt.
can't have my driver's license number. Yeah.
I just need a little bit more. But anything else?
No, this story's pretty cut and dry.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's lean, mean, and I like it.
Which is interesting that we had so much more to say about the stories lower on our list than these sort of middle stories. Because the middle stories were like, I liked them.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what my review.
They do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
They speed through a little bit like I like to call The Bullet. Number 4.
So we have a whole episode
on
Riding the Bullet and the Plant. Jen, you were on that.
Yep.
Mike, you weren't on that.
I wasn't.
And Ashley, you weren't. So I feel like Jen and I have talked extensively about writing the bullet already. So we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. But first, let's read the quote.
Yeah, Ashley, go for the quote
Sure.
for writing the bullet.
What King said. I think I've said almost everything that needs to be said about this story in the introduction. It's essentially my telling of a tale you can hear in almost any small town. And like the earlier story of mine, The Woman in the Room in Night Shift, it's an attempt to talk about how my own mother's approaching death made me feel. There comes a time in most lives when we must face the deaths of our loved ones as an actual reality, and, by proxy, the fact of our own approaching death. This is probably the single great subject of horror fiction, our need to cope with a mystery that can only be understood, that can be understood only with the aid of a hopeful imagination.
So what did you like about this one, Ashley?
I loved George Staub as a character. It was very, and I can't think of the character's name, Pet Sematary.
Victor Pascal.
Yes, Pascal.
Yeah.
It was
MVP.
very Pascal to me. Yeah, where he was gross and creepy and dirty, but like, I don't know, I liked him. Like, I don't know. Obviously, if I was in this car, I'd be very scared of him. But like, as someone who's just kind of reading the story, I really liked George Staub. But also, yeah, the idea of the theme that I talked about last week of the through theme in all these stories of being trapped. And like, you can look at this as like he was trapped in a car, but more importantly, he was trapped in a decision. Yeah. The decision to, sacrifice his own life for the life of his mother. But also, like, he had valid points. Like, she has lived a life. I haven't got a chance to live a life. Like, shouldn't that mean that I deserve it more? I deserve to live more than she does. And I just think that that's a really terrifying decision to be trapped in. And I think he did a really good job of making that decision scary. But also, my favorite thing about this story, though, is I love that the author recognized, or the character recognized, that the experience he had is probably what gave him the last years with his mother. Because he may not have been so dedicated to her if that hadn't happened. I mean, everyone has been in that situation where we lose a parent or a grandparent and we immediately think, like, I should have talked to them more. I should have asked them more questions about their life. Like, now I want to know all this stuff about them. I want to, like, have all these experiences with them, and they're gone. And that lasts a while. Like, you really do become closer with the people in your life after you lose someone because you realize the importance of that. But eventually your life has to happen and you drift further away from that. And then another person dies and you're like, I wish I had asked them more questions. I wish I had spent more time with them. And that's just a part of life for every single person. And the fact that he, like, makes sure to say, like, he never says, like, I'm grateful for this experience, but he does acknowledge that, like, he wouldn't have had the years that he had with his mother if he hadn't had this experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I love about this story is just what the road provides for King to do.
Yeah.
I love a good road trip movie. Kingpin, great movie. Tommy Boy, great movie.
Little Miss Sunshine.
It's just such an easy, it's just such an easy, vessel to tell a story on. And he really just kind of owns it. And what I was taken by with this story was just like King just kind of being able to appreciate the countryside. I mean, it sounds so stupid and especially coming after all the thematic weight you were just discussing here. But the thing that I remember most about this story is it kind of reminds me a little bit of like almost like Washington Irving, just the ways that you kind of use the terrain and the surroundings to kind of just draw you in. And some of the passages in here are just fucking gorgeous. Like on page 414, I breasted a steep hill and stepped it back into the moonlight again at the top. The trees were gone on my right, replaced by a small country graveyard. The stones gleamed in the pale light. Something small and black was crouched beside one of them, watching me. I took a step closer, curious. The black thing moved and became a woodchuck. It spared me, a single reproachful, red-eyed glance, and it was gone into the high grass. All at once, I became aware that I was very tired, in fact, close to exhausted. I had been running on pure adrenaline since Mrs. McCurdy had called the 5 hours before, but now that was gone. That was the bad part. The good part was that useless sense of frantic urgency left me, at least for the time being. And then he later talks about how, God, this is just such gorgeous stuff. Like a ground mist fine and glowing was rising out of the grass. The trees surrounding the cemetery on three sides rustled in the rising breeze. From beyond the graveyard came the sound of running water and the occasional plunk plunk of a frog. The place is beautiful and oddly soothing, like a picture in a book of romantic poems. Like, man, he's just owning it. And like, it's kind of crazy to think like, so this was written right after the accident, right, Randall? Or was it around the same time? I can't remember.
Bullet was the name of the dog of the man who hit him. The dog who distracted him when he hit King. So it's definitely a reaction to that, and it was one of the first things he did after the accident. I mean, this and Dreamcatcher, and I think the idea for writing the Bullet might have already been in his head. I feel like I read him saying that somewhere, but the story itself, I think, is very much about meeting mortality.
Well, it's beautiful. I think it's really well done, and it's one of those things where it's like still got it, So anything else you want to say about writing the Bullet? Because again, we do have that full episode. Yeah.
When he finds the button under his mother's bed after she does pass.
All right, good, yeah.
Are we to believe that she went on her own ride with George Staub before dying? Everyone takes a ride.
Interesting. Who do you think she would choose? Would she choose herself or her son?
I think she would choose herself.
Yeah.
But also, that decision, essentially, it's not that it meant nothing, but, he does choose himself and then his mother doesn't die. Mm-hmm. So you're left with, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but you're left with a little bit of like the man in the black suit where it's like, okay, well, so I know I experienced it because I have the button.
Right.
But were the consequences real?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he didn't say she'll die right away.
Yeah.
He never said like, choose your life or your mother's, like you'll get there and she'll, be dead immediately. Just that she'd die, which we all will. So I just thought that was interesting that like he lost the button and then he didn't find it until it was under her bed. And I was left with the question, did she also take a ride?
It's the old Inception ending with the
the spinning
spinner,
top.
Did
his choice have consequences really in the end?
Or was it just a way of presenting this choice and this fact of life to him in a way that he can like pinpoint this understanding of it by a pen? And I love the line where he's like, no, this is my pen now, throwing away what's the wrong thing. Like, I need to hold on to this experience.
Yeah.
Because ultimately because we're all going to die, and I think that's in the next story we're going to talk about too, which I think is a really interesting theme, kind of through line in this, is that we are all going to die, but maybe not today.
Yeah. But if you were to die today,
right.
Yeah, I think it's like encountering, we all have that moment when death becomes real.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what these stories are about. Yeah.
Right.
It's like a totem almost,
and it's like it's not that she died that day, it's that he finally understood, like the death is that he is going to live forever, this idea that his mother is never going to pass away. And that's what the death really is.
Well, speaking of death, he's it's the center of our next story, number 3, the man in the black suit.
The man in the black suit.
This one dates back to October 31st, 1994. October 31st, I believe that's Halloween. This was in the issue of the New Yorker, so I imagine that issue probably had some spooky stuff on it, maybe some spooky drawings from one of their New York artists. This is such a
New Yorker Halloween thing, too.
Oh, it absolutely is. Well, Jen, why don't you read what King said about this story?
All right. My favorite Nathaniel Hawthorne story is Young Goodman Brown. I think it's one of the 10 best stories ever written by an American. The Man in the Black Suit is my homage to it. As for the particulars, I was talking with a friend of mine one day, and he happened to mention that his grandpa truly believed that he had seen the devil in the woods back around the turn of the 20th century. Grandpa said the devil came walking out of the woods and started talking to him just like a natural man. While Grandpa was chinning with him, he realized that the man from the woods had burning red eyes and smelled like sulfur. My friend's grandpa became convinced that the devil would kill him if he realized Grandpa had caught on, so he did his best to make normal conversation until he could eventually get away. My story grew from my friend's story. Writing it was no fun, but I went on with it anyway. Sometimes stories cry out to be told in such loud voices that you write them just to shut them up. Oh, I love that. I thought the finished product a rather humdrum folktale told in pedestrian language. Certainly miles from the Hawthorne story I liked so much. When the New Yorker asked to publish it, I was shocked. When it won first prize in the O. Henry Best Short Story Competition for 1996, I was convinced someone had made a mistake. That did not keep me from accepting the award, however. Reader response was generally positive, too. This story is proof that writers are often the worst judges of what they have written.
Here's a thought I had while reading this, and especially this ties in with the Nathaniel Hawthorne. It's something that came to mind when we were reading Ghost Story, our Dance Macabre book episode last month, because he kind of gets into some Hawthorne-esque stories. Does horror get scarier the further back you go into the past? When you're reading stories that take place 17th century, 16th century, 19th century, is there an argument to be had that it's scarier than it's set today?
I mean, I can see the sense that there's less stuff. So there's less things that could have potentially caused whatever the haunting is, because nowadays you can blame so much on, environmental stuff or technology or lights and all that other stuff. And so there is something creepy about when there was, nothing but the moon in the sky and you're deep alone in the woods and there's, genuinely nothing else there, that whatever horrors are there are a lot more real, What scares me about this story though, and I think it's kind of the Robert Eggers effect, right? Like The Witch, which the Witch is one of my favorite horror movies of the last, however many years, because it's a movie in which the devil is real. Mm-hmm. And those are, because I don't have, I have a lot of religious experience in my background and currently, so I've never seen a ghost. I've never had an experience with a ghost. Any supernatural thing that I've had happen in my life, I would classify as demonic. I've had 2 experiences that I would say I've encountered demons. And I don't know, I wouldn't say I firmly believe that that's what happened, but it's my only answer. And so a story like this scares the pants off me because it is very much just this isn't a ghost. This was the devil, and it was a man with burning red eyes. And he told me that my mom was dead and my dad was a pedophile and all this other shit. And it's and he, was this malevolent tactile presence that was right in front of me and consumed a fish in front of me and touched me and all this stuff. And that is so deeply scary to me. The idea of a possessed person. And that's why we talked about this on our World of Horror episode when King talks about John Wayne Gacy and how the only people who will ever see the evil that possessed him are the people he killed, because they were the ones who saw his eyes as he was doing it. Yeah. And it's the idea that the evil was surfaced in those moments. And then when you watch interviews with John Wayne Gacy, in prison, he seems like a very normal guy, and you don't see the evil that exists in his eyes. And I think that to me is very, very deeply chilling. And I think that speaks to this story in some ways as well, that there is a demonic presence. And that speaks to 1408 too, where it's very firmly not a ghost story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I had a moment when I was younger that always makes me think of this story where I had my driver's license, so I had to be 16 or 17, and I was driving. I lived in the middle of nowhere in a town called Walnut Hill. It took me 20 minutes to get to civilization. And I remember one time, it was summer, it was hot, and I was driving into town, and I passed a guy who was wearing a suit, and he had a suitcase. And I remember seeing him from afar and driving up and being like, what the fuck is this guy doing? No one even owns a suit around here. What is this guy doing? And I thought maybe his car broke down. And as I got closer to him, he stopped and just looked at my car and like looked me right in the eyes as I passed him. And then I could see him in my rearview mirror. He watched me. He just stopped walking and watched my car until it was gone. And I don't know what happened to him. And I always, and I don't know if it's because, I was probably because of this story, my whole life I was like, that was the devil. Like I saw it, like what the hell was it that I saw? And then I started the podcast. And years into the podcast, I had a listener write in who now lives in my hometown. And she told a story about a man in a suit who came in on a hot summer day to the pharmacy she was working at. And how his breath smelled really bad and he had this weird smile on his face. And in my town, like, it's not like everyone knows everyone, but you recognize pretty much everyone. She was like, I'd never seen him before and I never saw him since and I never want to see him again. And she was like, I know like the likelihood of that being the same man you saw all those years ago is very slim. But when you told that story on the podcast, I could not stop thinking about this man.
That's fascinating.
It's so fascinating. And so the man in the black suit is like it's almost like an archetype. It's like a scarecrow, clown. And I think the man in the black suit is another one of those. It's almost like a Slender Man type character.
Yeah. Oh,
like
absolutely.
Everyone has this sort of fear of that type of person and however you picture him and whatever he does to you. But yeah, I've had my own man in the black suit and I don't want to meet him.
No, the folklorish figure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Jen, I feel like you're a little cold on this one. Maybe a little scared of the man in black suit.
Was it the shark mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my neighbors went fishing yesterday and they had this big fish are kind of gross.
Fish are gross for sure.
But this fish was delicious. We ate it last night. But yeah, I do really like this story. And that's kind of, I was thinking about this, like, there's really only one story in the collection that I don't like. Like, when my ranking, a lot of it was just like, which one do I like more? And this one just kind of, I think because I've listened to some of the other ones so many times, I just have this emotional attachment to it. But I love this story. I think it's really haunting. I also think when I was talking about the death of Jack Hamilton, I kind of put this in the same category as that. Like, it's like this horror in the daylight, but like in the southern horrific world that sometimes I just am not really that into. I think it might reveal a little bias on my part being a Southerner, or maybe like I don't want people to think that all Southerners are a certain way. I don't know. So sometimes that is off-putting. Sometimes I'm really, really into it and sometimes not. And I think that's what gets me a little bit distanced from this one. But the things that I love about it, like I love the idea of a bee sting killing his brother and that this is just something he's living with. Like, the story is not about his brother's death, but that just pervades the whole thing. I like the idea that the devil is just fucking with him.
Yeah.
You know? Like, this is the worst thing I can tell you, and this is what I'm going to tell you. And I was really kind of, every time I read this, I think I draw a little more into the story of the mom, like beating that woman who suggested that her son died of a bee sting and like never wanting to come back to church again. I just think that's such a brief but really fascinating response to grief, you know? And you could look at this whole story as a response to grief, which I think is really interesting. So I do think it's great. It just, like Ashley, like you said earlier, other ones just kind of beat it out.
Yeah. I also, you know, I kind of got a real Pennywise vibe from the man in the black suit, in that, especially when he does go home and his mom's fine.
Yeah.
Almost in like a, you'll taste better if you're scared type of thing. Because I was like, well, why, if he was really the devil, shouldn't his mom be dead? Like, he should have gone home to find his mom dead, but it really was just trying to fuck him up, basically, psychologically.
The devil's also a liar. Like, that's sort of like in Christian circles. Yeah, that's very much sort of the thing, is like the devil lies, the devil lies, the devil
he lies.
Demons
to
lie.
You
when they're in your head, they're lying.
Yeah,
to you.
Devil's
what you
my
can
best
be,
friend.
what you can have.
I mean,
Satan
even
is my motor.
Well, even the description of him, which is terrifying, it does feel like a scene out of It. I mean, just I'm going to read it real quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to read one line and then I'll jump over. So it's like, As I sat there trembling on the edge of panic or simply bolting to my feet and then bolting anywhere, there came a rapport from behind me. It was as sharp and premonitory as a pistol shot, but I knew it wasn't a pistol shot. It was someone clapping his hands, one single clap, and then you jump ahead. And this is so scary. At that moment, hauling in a big one was about the last thing on my mind, however, and when the line snapped and the fish fell back into the stream, I barely noticed. I looked over my shoulder to see who had clapped. A man was standing above me at the edge of the trees. His face was very long and pale. Oh, God. And his black hair was combed tight against his skull and parted with rigorous care on the left side of his narrow head. He was very tall. He was wearing a black three-piece suit, and I knew right away that he was not a human being because his eyes were the orangey red of flames in a wood stove. I don't just mean the irises, because he had no irises and no pupils and certainly no whites. His eyes were completely orange, an orange that shifted and flickered, and it was really too late. It's really too late not to say exactly what I mean, isn't it? He was on fire inside, and his eyes were like little isinglass portholes you sometimes see in the stove doors. I mean, if we're looking at the whole book as a whole, there are a lot of recurring elements just in this story alone with a lot of this stuff. I mean, the devil itself, you know, we just talked about George Staub. The sort of teasing of the mother being dead is very similar to what the Man in Black does here.
Yeah.
That description of the importance of the fire in the eyes ties into another story we're going to be discussing soon, 1408, and just the light of it all and the evil of that light. And so it's kind of interesting how to see a lot of the tapestries that are recurring in this short story collection. Like it's very complex. More I'm thinking about it in hindsight, I'm just like how everything is weaved in, you know, thematically, visually, and narratively. And it's kind of wild that there was no intent for that.
Yeah.
You know, as we discussed earlier, it was just him kind of taking these stories and shuffling them together. It's almost like Ka itself made this story together. Yeah, I love the story. I think, and I was saying, I do think there's something about folklore, or the idea of folklore, especially when you're seeing it in the lens of this being an old school story, that really gets at me.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know, loved it. It reminds me of one of the scariest sections of Ghost Story, which we talk about in that episode. So
it really does seem like it could be a scene from it. Like in the past, like one of his, 27
like
years.
one of the cycles.
Yeah, one of his cycles where he came back and just terrorized this child.
Maybe the Man in Black will pop up in Welcome to Derry. Yeah, we'll see that.
Hey, if he's played by a Skarsgård, sign me up.
Well,
he would be a good. Yeah, I could see a Skarsgård.
Oh, he would.
Yeah. Well, everything's eventual, which is the second story that we have here. This one dates back to November 1997 issue of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. And Randall, you want to just read what King said about it?
Yeah. One day out of nowhere, I had a clear image of a young man pouring change into a sewer grating outside of the small suburban house in which he lived. I had nothing else, but the image was so clear and so disturbingly odd that I had to write a story about it. It came out smoothly and without a single hesitation, supporting my idea that stories are artifacts, not really made up things or made things which we create and can take credit for, but pre-existing objects which we dig up.
So the first thing on my mind with this story is it's basically Severance.
I wrote that down too.
Right?
Yeah.
And King's a huge fan of Severance. I wonder if King watching it was just like, it looks like they've been reading my short story, Everything's Eventual.
He was a big fan of Severance.
I actually, and that was the one thing that I'm trying to say this without any Severance spoilers, but that was the one thing. This was the story that I felt could be a novel in and of itself, because when it ended, I wanted to see who sent him that letter. How can he get out of this? Is there a way out of this? Like in Severance, just sort of like the decision he makes to try and get out of it or stay in it. And also, I want to see what the process is. I want to see like what the powers that be do when he escapes them, or if he escapes them. So that was the only thing that I was let down with the story, is that when it ended, I was like, no, like that was the end of the story. Like I wanted it to keep going. I wanted to see if there was a possibility he could get out of this trapped situation he was in.
Yeah. And I think the difficulty and the ambiguity of whether or not he can escape it is in some ways it contributes to, I think, the overall message, which what I really took from this story is incredible. And I mean, this is a story about a guy who basically is young, underemployed, kind of a loser, is bullied, lives with his mom, and he's given a job opportunity that taps into what his like actual talents are, which, you know, in this case is his ability to write weird symbols that make people kill themselves, which is pretty interesting. And but basically, instead of having this talent nurtured and cultivated, and he's able to sort of, you know, execute it in a way that enriches him and enriches more people around him, he is recruited by a major corporation to send emails all day and not know what havoc he is wreaking. And they give him and they say this in the story, it's brilliant. It's like they give him just enough money so that he can't have any savings. And then they give him all the stuff he wants, you know, so he can get a house and he can fill it with stuff, but he can't actually have any assets of his own or any money of his own, because that would necessitate he would leave. And this is very much a story about the ways in which the elite, you know, ruling class of America, utilize low class people with a lot of talent to do their dirty work, you know, and it's incredibly powerful in that depiction, I think. And just, I think the note, and this is too, like when people started, email became a big part of people's jobs. And now we literally have a phrase that has kind of permeated culture, which is fake email job, which I had one of those once upon a time. And I think a lot of people do. We have fake email jobs. And we send emails all day. And so but what I love about this story is that his emails literally kill people. And I think that speaks to the banal nature of capitalism, right? And just basically like the kind of horrible conditions that the corporate structures that run this country like wreak on a daily basis in terms of marginalizing poor people and people of color and impacting the environment in negative ways, basically making the world a worse and worse place with every email that gets sent. And and it's also just about how we're all complicit in capitalism, and it's incredibly hard to get away from it because, you know, he says, I have a good job. Like, I've got a good job now and no reason to feel glum, because he knows what it's like to be poor and he knows what it's like to be a loser. And I get it, man. Like I've been underemployed in my life, and I was grateful to have fake email jobs when I was younger because it was stability. And all you want, people are so desperate for stability in this country that they're very useful automatons, right, for the corporate structures to use. They can give you benefits, they can give you stuff to put in your house, but they don't want you to have too much power. They don't want you to have too much money of your own, because then you'll leave and they can't use you. And so so anyways, I think that kind of sense of being trapped in and I love it's kind of this combination of this fantastic, you know, supernatural sci-fi kind of premise with the drudgeries of labor. You know, is such a wonderful story. And it's like the radical politics of King that I miss, that we don't get as much these days from him. And so I don't know. I was very smitten with this story.
Yeah. I mean, it's very prescient, especially, you know, seeing how this was, late 90s. So 97 is pretty much when the internet starts becoming a little bit more ubiquitous in a way. I feel like most of the Americans had it at that point. You know, 97 is like right when you're starting to get into like AOL 2.7 territory. And so, you know, more people are starting to get it in their homes. Personal computers are now being upgraded. So for him to write this at that point, it's just how, you know, real great foresight here, because this speaks volumes today. And especially at a time when, you know, when you think about Dickey getting the blinds removed, right, and seeing what happens, and then still feeling powerless for it. You know, I mean, ultimately, there's a silver lining to this, and be like, oh, we could do something about it, and like, you know, in reality, for us, we can't. You know, there's you know, look at the culture writers of this world. Like they've lost their fucking minds trying to offer solutions that they know themselves aren't going to do anything. And you know, and I think that's what Twitter has become also, is that you just keep sending these you know, these grievances, knowing that it doesn't matter how many times you retweet something, it doesn't matter how many times you donate to some sort of thing. the monster.
The larger, it's
you're going to get
the
crushed.
the larger structures exist, and
Yes.
I mean, and this is what. Not to get crazy, it's just like this is what we're told all the time is that it's on us, it's on us, it's on us, it's on us, it's our bootstraps, it's us. And if you want to stop climate change, stop using hairspray. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or
but
vote.
Then
Just vote.
Yeah, just vote. Like, but meanwhile, like they'll support all the corporations that actually pollute the earth. Yeah. This is just how this country is run, and we're so deep in it, it's impossible to think of it ever changing. Yeah.
You know,
and that's why the ending I think is so great, because it's like. He can kill his boss, right?
Yeah.
But can he topple the trans corporation?
That's the thing.
Or whatever?
He can kill his boss.
Yeah,
but then who's going to take advantage of him next? Like, where does he go from here?
Yeah, because he's got no escape hatch, you know, and you know, and the nice thing is, I know that this character resurfaces in the King universe, but I don't remember how. So I'm actually excited because I had not read this story.
All right, so that answers one of my questions. Let's just wait until we get to that.
Let's
not.
So
is this the other one that ties into Dark Tower?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But this is a way more standalone story, I feel like.
I agree.
Because I know a lot of like tower heads that don't know this is a Dark Tower adjacent story, because it's its own thing and it exists in its own world too, and it's so fucking readable. Like I just love. I get swept away by this story. Exactly. And Justin Long reads this.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect. Like he's just his like little dinkyisms. It's just so great. I don't always love Justin Long, but I love him in the story.
This would be like Jeepers Creepers era. Justin Long.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of one of my favorite sections in The Shining is when they're walking through the pantry and he's just like naming all of the food. And there's something that's just so like readable about his like listing of all the stuff he can get, you know, but it's fun too. And I also love it. And it's one of the criticisms I had of the new Black Phone movie is I love that this entire story takes place within Dinky's world and with his vantage point. Like we never see the larger corporation. And I want to know, like Ashley, I agree. I want to know everything about it. But I also kind of love that we don't, you know, because it's just like this little window. And it's such a good depiction, I think, about how somebody who's a good person could really easily be swayed into this and like just caught up in it. And you don't realize like, oh, I've killed 200 people.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's the thing is we're so unstable as a country that people just want stability, and they'll take whatever job they can get, you know?
Right.
And we're desperate for work, you know? And it's like that. And that's like what I think is so unfortunate is we all end up having to do the bidding of evil people, you know? I mean, it's like, and that's what I always go back to this because I thought it was such a smart point, but that's what Laura kind of presented when we talked about Billy Summers is this notion of how we all end up kind of working for the powers that are kind of hurting the country and how hard it is to free ourselves from that. And how, because that is like post-capitalism, right? And we're all contributing to the decline. And, it's a horrible place to live in, you know? And I think that's like what this captures through this, you know, this kind of goofball character who, like anyone, is just trying to survive. And a lot of times to survive, you have to contribute to things that, you know, that contribute to the decline. And it's just, it's very sad. And this story made me like tremendously sad because I think things have only gotten so much worse since it was first written. And that, I think it's the reason I like Severance too, is Severance touches on a lot of those themes.
Well, the good news is that it's all going to get worse. So it's only going to get, you know,
sorry for
there's no silver lining to the reality of all this. Anyway, are we okay to check into number one?
Yeah, let's do 1408.
Yeah. So this one dates back to the Blood and Smoke audiobook from 1999. It also kind of ties into On Writing, and here's why. Here's what King said. As well as the ever-popular premature burial, every writer of shock suspense tales should write at least one story about the ghostly room at the inn. This is my version of that story. The only unusual thing about it is that I never intended to finish it. I wrote the first 3 or 4 pages as part of an appendix for my On Writing book, wanting to show readers how a story evolves from the first draft to second. Most of all, I wanted to provide concrete examples of the principles I'd been blathering about in the text. But something nice happened. The story seduced me, and I ended up writing all of it. I think that what scares us varies wildly from one individual to the next. I've never been able to understand why Peruvian boom slangs give some people the creeps, for example. But this story scared me while I was working on it. It originally appeared as part of an audio compilation called Blood and Smoke. I just said that, Stephen. And the audio scared me even more. Scared the hell out of me. But hotel rooms are naturally creepy places. And don't you think? I mean, how many people slept in that bed before you? How many of them were sick? How many were losing their minds? How many were perhaps thinking about reading a few final verses from the Bible in the drawer of the nightstand beside them, and then hanging themselves in the closet beside the TV? In any case, let's check in, shall we? Here's your key. And you might take time to notice what those 4 innocent numbers add up to. It's just down the hall. They add up to 13. So
I know, I was like, it's 19, right? I was like, I can't get any numbers that contribute to 19. But.
Yeah. We all had this at number 1. No surprise. This is classic night shift material. I honestly feel like it's a story that mentally had been collecting dust and cobwebs in King's head since The Shining. I want to say there's an argument that he had that this is the scariest story he's written to date. I was so shaken and put in a place after this story was read. And I think it's the claustrophobia. I think it's the way that it punches in and punches out. I think it's the imagery at hand that are so surreal and but yet so, as he says, there's a ubiquity to the scares in this. And I don't know, this one really rattled me. And it's funny because I've seen 1408, the movie, countless times. It's on fucking Pluto TV every day. And I'm excited to get to it too, but I love the simplicity of it. And this one just scared me. Like, I mean, Sammy had woken up just as I finished it, and I just was in a daze. I just couldn't stop thinking about some of the scares in this. Am I alone in saying that it might be one of his scariest stories, or is that too hyperbole?
No, I mean,
hyperbole?
It was my favorite in 9th grade, and it's still my favorite of this collection, and probably one of my favorite short stories he's ever written. It scares the shit out of me. And like you said, there's so many different scares in it. There's the claustrophobia, obviously, of being trapped in this room. There's also the idea of being not in control of your own body and the things that you're saying, like the fact that he starts just saying things that don't make sense. That's terrifying, and that's something that you can either put you could put dementia into, the fact that you have completely lost control of what you can experience, the fact that you can't trust what you're seeing is real. That's fucking scary. There's so many different things that are scary about it, and I think it's one of the most successful, haunted stories because it checks off the boxes for a good haunted story. One, you have a really good narrator. You have Mike Enslin, who's I would read anything Mike Enslin wrote. He's such a fun guy. He's so cynical. I love him. You also have him going into this haunted situation for a reason. There is a reason. And there's also a reason for him to maybe not leave when he should. So that's a lot of problems with haunted house stories. Is like Amityville did it already in 1978 or 79, where it's like, we put all our money into this house. We can't just leave. Okay, valid. But so many people have done that. It's so much more satisfying when you put someone in a situation where it's like, why not just fucking leave? Like, why even do this? So when you give them a reason to be there, a reason to continue on when maybe they shouldn't. Like, as soon as he noticed the door was crooked, like most people, you'd be like, run, get out of there. Like, what are you doing? And the fact that he has the reason to go in, he has the reason to almost like prove them wrong that this place is haunted. It's just, it checks off all the great boxes of a haunted house story. And then on top of it, you have to wrestle with the fact that, like, it's not just a haunted house. It's not like, what the fuck happened in this room? Like, it can't just be that the numbers add up to 13. Like, you start thinking, like, did Ivo Shandor build this building?
I know.
Like, how? What is
Art Deco?
What is going on with this room? It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, that lack of explanation is what makes it work. It's like
100%.
We get all the story right up front. Like, we learn who this guy is. The hotel manager says, don't do it. And we get a little bit of lore, just history, basically. And then when we're in the room, there's no story, and we don't need it. And like, that to me is what makes it so strong.
Yeah.
There's no ghost child who has a backstory.
Yeah.
There's no reason for this to be happening, and there's no tropes that are easily categorized or contextualized within the context of this room. It is simply a terrifying room where things happen to one guy. And And I love that. I love that there's no arc in his journey within the room. He goes in and is assaulted with horrors for however many minutes and then leaves. And like
waste no time. They
waste
really
no
don't.
time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I just feel like, and this is where I'm excited to revisit the movie because I'm sure I don't remember much about it. I've only seen it once. I'm sure that they impose some kind of narrative structure onto him being in the room. Which I think you like. I mean, in screenwriting school or whatever, you learn that you have to do that. And the thing is, I think if there was perhaps a more visionary director, they wouldn't have had to do that. They could have tried to just be atmospheric with it and exist within the horror. But the thing is, there's a formlessness to the horror, which is what speaks to me. There's no arc to the horror. It is basically just scary shit starts happening.
Like, I love the description. It was never human, he told the incoming waves in a choke halting voice. At least ghosts were once human. The thing in the wall, though, that thing. It reminds me of what we discussed. And I think this is one of the biggest scares for you with The Shining, was that thing in the pipe, right?
Yep. That was the scariest thing.
You just don't know.
Me, yeah.
And it's just that force, that presence. And the thing that I love about this is that it actually ties in with, I texted you this, Randall, because I know you're a big fan, is that there's a video game, Silent Hill: The Room.
Oh yeah, I've never played that one.
Oh,
I love the Silent Hill series.
It's so fucking scary, and it's absolutely indebted to the story, because the thing I love about that is that it takes away your safety net. Because in those survival horror games, the safe room is always the room that calms you. They even have music that calms you the most about it. It's just this like pleasant, dreamy music that gives you a sense to kind of breathe in, breathe out. The genius about that game is that your safe room is your apartment in which you start at, and as you go and you continue, things change in the room. So what once was a safe haven, all of a sudden you start noticing, ooh, there's this weird mold on the wall, and then that mold becomes these like faces, and then those faces become this like cadre of like weird sort of children-like faces that are crying and weeping, and then you notice outside your window that there was a person there was the buses that used to come by, but now there's nothing that's there. And then all of a sudden you start noticing that the hallway is shorter than it was before. But then you come back and you leave one room, you come out, and then the hallway's even longer. That sort of, there's no rhyme or reason for what's happening, but it's happening, and it's playing with your reality. And you don't know what's playing with your reality. Is it some sort of thing that's coming out and doing these things? Or is it just the quantum physics of this reality that's changing around you? You don't know. And to me, that lack of control is so disturbing and so universally human in its scare that for me, I think that's what ultimately got me the most out of this story. It's just like, is being in that moment. Like I wanted to be, I was riveted by these pages, and yet I also wanted to be done with it as soon as possible. I was like, I got to get out of here. I want to get out of this fucking room. And it's hard to convey that. And he does it in this. And I was just blown away by it. Sorry.
But you get the best of both worlds too, because like you get like, Mike Enslin is fantastic, but Olin is incredible. Yeah. And the way he unfolds all of this history. Like I used to listen to this every Halloween as I was driving to work. And I would listen to the first, because it's on 2 CDs. And I would listen to the first half on my way in, and that's just the whole backstory of
which
the room.
Is already creepy.
It's incredible. Yes. And the way he unfolds all of this, it's just so great. And then I would listen to the back half on my way home, and it's like you have the best kind of haunted house tropes. You know, you get this really great backstory, and then you get this like just insanity when he gets in the room. And I'm so in love with the idea that this existed in audio before it existed on a page, because like you should hear Stephen King read this story. Like it is his gravelly voice reading the voice of the room, and like I can hear it. It's like 9 goddamn fucking 9. Like just the way he brings it to life is so, it's just incredible.
Yeah, the numbers are so creepy.
Oh yeah, like it's the voice of the room, and I can hear it in my head, and it's amazing.
Well, like that line, like his delivery is amazing. Like just even on page, it's like it was the voice of the room, the presence pouring out of the walls and the floor, the presence speaking to him from the telephone had nothing in common with any haunting or paranormal event he had ever read about. There was something alien here. No, not here yet, but coming. It's
coming,
hungry and your dinner. Like, and just the idea of just, it's so overwhelming. Like King really does try to tackle every sense here that gets to you.
Yeah,
and
sensory is big because there's the sound, like when he
smell.
starts to, the horns on the street are fading.
Yep.
But he can like hear saxophone, and then like when his feet start sticking to the floor, the air becomes thicker. He's moving like he's underwater. That kind of shit, man. It's really great. And like,
there's a saxophone that plays in that part, and it scares the shit out of me every time because it jumps in.
And then the way that things are moving, it reminds me of like in Evil Dead 2 when all the things are moving in the cabin. And granted, like, you know, that scene is played for fun and comedic value, but when you think about,
but if
like,
it actually
even just the
happened to
movements
you,
of it, it's terrifying.
not funny.
Like, and the way that things are like framing up and down, like, you know, like a cartoon, and things are melting. And in the moving portraits, it's just like all of it together. I just was like, I can't. I wouldn't even been able to light myself on fire. I would just been like, all right, I'm just gonna kill myself right now.
I guess this is my fate.
Yeah,
right.
It's the difference. If it's the first half of the story and the second half of the story is like a great example of spooky and scary.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And because spooky has more comforting pleasures, and I love spooky, but scary is like uncomfortable. You know, it's like this is genuinely not fun. Like this is actually upsetting.
Like Lynchian.
Yeah, and like that's, and I'm always intrigued by that, the kind of dichotomy between the two of those things, and like because in like spooky stories you get a ghost girl whose spirit just needs to be put to rest, right? And it can be very creepy, but there's an arc to it, there's a narrative to it. Scary stuff, it's like, no, there's no real logic or rhyme or reason to this. Like this is just horror, and I love that.
Well, the fact that King was able to pull it off too, because it is so creepy and it builds so much up to him getting to that room, that I remember the first time reading it just being like, the payoff cannot be as good as it's set up to be. Like the twist, if you will, if there is going to be a twist, it can't be as good as he set it up because it's so well set up. And then he surpasses everything that you could possibly come up with in your head as to what's going to happen to Mike Enslin in this room. Throw it out the window because you have no fucking idea what's going to happen to him in this room. It is terrifying. And just the little things, like you were talking about senses, like the smells that he experiences and the feel, but also, like you said, the touch. He at one point brushes up against the wall and it feels like skin.
Yeah.
And like at one point he touches it's like a menu, but he's like, it's too soft. It shouldn't be this
like rotted
soft.
silk.
Yeah, and and then he goes, how would I know what rotted silk feel like? It's really a loss of control completely.
Well, that exactly. And it's irreverent terror. Where you're like, where is this coming from? Like just the mention of like it was your nickname. It was like the mentioning of the cougar.
Yeah,
or not
my brother
was the wolves.
My brother was eaten by wolves on a Connecticut turnpike.
That random
and then he's
line.
like, my brother died of cancer.
And then even just like the numbers, like that doesn't really make any sense either. And just what's actually being screamed, and then like the black pores coming, not like mouths, and it's just. When King says that this is a story that scared him, I get it. Like, and that's why I keep wondering, like, is this something that he had when he was thinking about The Shining? Because, and the reason why I say that is because one of the things I read earlier this year was, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember. Whenever I got the TV guide that had the Before the Play in it, and there's a lot of little short stories that are about the Overlook it's like a prequel, and what's so scary about those is that they're contained stories just like this. And so he's able to just kind of wield in all these scares without having to get into the backstories of it all that Randall, we were just talking about, kind of, softens the blow, becomes more spooky than scary. And I do wonder if these are like some leftover tropes that he had just kind of sitting in his head, because the scariest parts of The Shining for me have nothing to do with any of the actions going on with Jack and Danny. It's usually the stuff the irreverent terror that I'm talking about, where you just can't explain it. It's just like, where did that come from? And also, where did that come from you, King? Like, where did you come up with this shit? Like, it's so creepy. And I get where it's almost like what he says about Pet Sematary, where it's like, he thought it was too evil and too scary that he put it into a drawer because he was so terrified of it. And Pet Sematary is filled with these type of moments. And this is why I think I was also just overwhelmed. yesterday because I've been wanting this so much from him for a long time. And it's not to say that I don't love his writing. I mean, because obviously I still love his writing. We're still doing this podcast, but I missed that sort of like, you're going to keep me up at night now.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels dangerous when you read the second half of this. And it's interesting, like I was thinking about connecting it to The Shining. It's like Olin's office feels like Jack reading the stuff in the basement and finding that scrapbook. And then he just happens upon that line, like, and they took his balls with him. And it's like, oh, now we're in another world where this is suddenly my life. I'm not reading about it from a distance anymore. And I love the amp up to this. Like, you can really look at this as a story in two rooms. We're in Olin's office where we have a safe distance from the scare, and even Olin feels safe and comfortable. And then I love how he talks about, like, Olin starts to get scared, more scared of it. And he's like, I don't want to get any closer to it. And it's just like, it's palpable.
Yeah. And it's, the last thing I'll say about it is it's like a terror that leaves you dumbstruck. Like that's like when he sees the people in the painting, and the great thing is that he knows it's them, even though like there's no reason he should know.
There's no way he could.
But it says the man on the far left nearest the ship's bow wore a brown wool suit and held a derby hat in one hand. His hair was slicked to his brow and parted in the middle. His face was shocked and vacant. Mike knew his name, Kevin O'Malley, this room's first occupant, a sewing machine salesman who had jumped from this room in October of 1910. To O'Malley's left were the others who had died here, all with the same vacant, shocked expression. It made them look related, all members of the same inbred and cataclysmically retarded family. That last sentence like got under my skin so bad.
Yes.
And like this vacant, shocked expression, it's like, it's not like The Ring where like the face is distorted, right, which is like still really powerful, but it's more of just this like odd sense of dumbstruck terror.
Right. And I love the idea that like your death is going to look like one thing, but what it actually is, like the world that you are in now, the human mind cannot understand how awful your death is going to be, And also there's a little bit of King's Dominion in that somebody drowns in a bowl of soup, which is like,
the stand,
a nice little icing on the cake,
Yeah. Love it.
Ooh, give me chills reading that part,
Would you say,
I was trying to, for every story, I was trying to do like a, what I liked most, what I didn't like. And I had no notes on what I didn't like of this story. I really think it's perfect.
It's a flawless
story. It is perfect, perfect story.
Yeah, it really is.
It might be his scariest.
I
really
do.
Like Grandma is the other one that comes to mind as like really, really scares me, but I don't know.
Well, it's just the ending of this. The ending is there's no escaping of it, and the way that he can't escape of it feels so real to me. Like they don't let it known that it's it's not something that like something's haunting him still. It's like no, he is haunted,
right?
It's in him now,
like his
and that's
eyes and his heart.
And who can't relate to that?
Final thoughts, Mike?
Let's get to final thoughts.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
Who wants to kick it off? On a scale of 1 to 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses, Jen, lead us off.
I'm gonna give it 4.5. I think. Fuck it. I'm gonna give it 5. I love
shit, 5-noser.
book. I know, it's so good. Like, especially as we're like unpacking all of it. There's really only one story that I don't like, and that's a personal preference. It's not because it's a bad story, I think this is my third favorite collection after Skeleton Crew and Night Shift, but it's just so good. And I think there's such a wide range of horror here. The audiobooks are really, really well done. Like some of my favorite audiobooks of all time are here, the ones that I keep going back to. Like I've listened to 1408, I don't know how many times. I want to listen to it again, like now that we're done recording, just to kind of enjoy it again. Like it's just so good. And I love that he plays with format in this too, because I think it makes the stories stronger in a way. So 5,
Makes sense.
Come at me, bros.
Hey. Well, Ashley, what about you?
I would say 4. I would say it's a really solid 4. 4.5. I really, because even like I said, even the stories that like were the lowest on my list, it's not that I didn't enjoy reading them. It's just they happened to be lower, and also, well, maybe lucky quarter, but Also, I'm so glad I got to do this episode with you guys, because I don't know if I ever would have reread it, and I definitely don't think I would have reread it and then had to analyze what the connective tissue was between them. I don't usually do that with short story collections. I just enjoy them, and then they get put on the shelf, and I pull them off years later maybe to revisit them, and that's as far as they go. But talking about all these stories and talking about like the deeper aspects of them and how we did have to like rehash some things we had already talked about because they are present in so many of these stories. And yeah, I would say 4.5. It does have some of my all-time favorite King stories like 1408 and The Man in Black Suit, but it's really good. I really liked it, and I really loved rereading it.
Yeah. Randall.
4, Bright Red Pennywise Clown Noses. Love this. And I think, Mike, I'm similar to you in that I wanted to be scared by King again.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that there isn't scary stuff in Black House, because there is, but I think 1408 and Man in Black Suit scared me in ways that King hasn't in quite a while, and that was extremely exciting for me. And because I was saying this when we were on break earlier, it's like it's so hard to find scary books, like it really really is, and it's so thrilling when you're reminded of like how good King is at this. So really love this. It was a great first read for me. There's a few stories I think are duds, and I think that's just where the star comes off, but I mean, this is Night Shift obviously I think has the stronger hit ratio, but I think, and there's obviously amazing stories in it, same with Skeleton Crew, but this one for me, I think like the highs of 1408, Everything's Eventual, and Man in the Black Suit are maybe even higher than stuff in Night Shift. It's like it's a story that it's a collection that I think these are excellent stories. So yeah, I don't know, I'm a huge fan of a lot of it, and yeah, I think just some of the duds are the only things that take away from it. But yeah, how about you, Mike?
4 for me. 4 Bright Red Pennywise Clown Noses. I mean, the strength of 1408, Everything's Eventual, that feeling, you could only say what it is in French. The Man in the Black Suit, and God, and All That You Love Will Be Carried Away. I think those are all enough, like 10 out of 10 stories. Like you could, become an essential read for constant readers. And but what I really appreciate about it is kind of what we were discussing earlier, is just the hindsight of it all. I mean, King's 55 by the time this is released. And he's this sharp, he's this varied, and he's also this spirited. Like there's an energy here that doesn't come off like in a lot of authors at this age, where you're like, oh, I'm kind of just, doing my victory lap. No, he's still like training for the marathon and running at faster than most people, which is pretty fucking astounding. And I think it also speaks to his virility as a storyteller, and more specifically, an original imaginative storyteller. So none of these stories really dip below a 3 for me. I would say a 3-noser for me out of 5. So, I think 4 is good. I think this is a remarkable achievement. And, I think like a lot of the stories in Night Shift, I'm going to return to them, but, we did it. It's, we did it. Look, wow. These episodes were split in 2, but we recorded them in 1. So we started at 11 a.m. and it's 3:30. So we're fucking done. It's time to leave the Dolphin. Before we go, and avoid the terrifying sunset that's going to leave us shivering in our apartments, let's share where we're going to go next. Ashley, what's next over at Keep It Weird, and any haunted hotels coming up?
No haunted hotels coming up, unfortunately. I just left my haunted inn, and I'm glad that it's behind me for a while now. No, we actually, the episode that just came out this past week, Randall was our guest.
Yeah,
and
nice.
So
we
fun.
discussed Stephen King. It was just sort of a little sort of appreciation episode for him. We've got some true crime coming up, and then Lauren and I are going to be covering the weirdest festivals around the world, and that one's going to be a lot of fun.
Ooh, are you going to go to any of them, or try to go to?
No, but we are going to dress up.
Oh, okay.
We are going to. We're actually going to do this on as like a YouTube special episode. Obviously, she's in California still, and I'm in Illinois now, so it's going to be over Zoom, but we are going to, as we do our research, find the most interesting festival, and then we have to dress for said festival.
Nice. Love it.
That should be fun.
Well, where can our listeners find you on socials?
Oh yeah, you can find us at Keep It Weird Cast is our social media handle. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcasts, and our website is www.keepitweirdpodcast.com.
Nice. Jenn, what can our listeners find over at Psychoanalysis?
Well, soon you're going to find Ashley because she's going to do a comfort horror episode with us that I'm super excited about. We just finished up one of our heaviest topics to date, but we are going to finish it with some fun because our 100th episode is going to be this month.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you. So we're super excited. We're going to do a discomfort horror episode, I think, where we talk about the scary movies that we are too scared to watch. And I've got a long list, starting with Titan there, which just about killed me in the first 15 minutes. No. And then we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. I think we're going to do an episode on misery and toxic fandom down the road. We don't have that totally planned out yet, but just lots of fun stuff. So, yeah.
Nice. And Randall, where are we going from here? Are we sticking around?
Our next book is From a Buick 8, which we'll be covering in August. August, right?
Yeah, it's our August read.
I have no idea of time anymore. So, and the 1408 movie episode, stay tuned for that. Our guest on it, his name's Josh Sigourney. He's a friend of mine from Chicago, and he told me in 2017 that 1408 was his favorite horror movie of all time, and we had just started the pod, and so he said, please let me on to talk about 1408. I am holding true to that promise. He is going to be on our episode to defend, well, I mean, I don't think I'll be trashing it or anything, but he is going to defend it as one of the great horror movies of all time. So we'll be excited to hear from him, and then and share our own thoughts. And then and we've also got a film festival coming up in Chicago.
We do.
Over Labor Day weekend, we're going to be doing a Stephen King film festival featuring Shining, Dr. Sleep double feature, in addition to a lot of other exciting things. So book it, Labor Day weekend, Chicago, Illinois, the Music Box Theater. We're going to be there. We're going to be doing a live recording. We're going to have a party, and there's going to be a lot of movies and merch. So please come see us.
Come one, come all, as they say in the biz. But what they also say in the biz is that's a wrap. So be sure to pull down every shade and blind and drape in your house and wait in the dark until the light, even the last fading glow along the horizon. Wait till it's gone for good. But rest assured, we'll be back chasing the tower once and for all. Over long days
and pleasant
nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. We hope you enjoyed this production. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.